Joined now by Jonathan Cavoni from ESPN. Jonathan, it's Joel along with Ryan. How you doing?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing well. This is a good time for the league. I felt like it was the most unpredictable after the first three picks draft in a long, long time. How did you see it going in? And then give us a couple of teams that you liked what they did in the draft.
Yeah, there was a feeling going in that it was going to be a crazy night. It's going to be a crazy summer, and this is kind of the appetizer for that. A lot of teams trying to, position themselves for free agency, move contracts around. There are a lot of teams with multiple picks who are hoping to get, future picks, just to kind of balance out their roster. And New Orleans. No surprise, had a wonderful draft. Anytime you pick up a franchise player like Zion Williamson, who's going to be such a star from day one, you've won. But then, just all the moves that David Griffin, your former colleague, has made, have been awesome. With the Anthony Davis trade and just all the picks that they have, it's very, very impressive. Besides them, I thought Memphis has really done a great job. Their new front office, starting with the Mike Conley trade, picking Ja Morant, and then Brandon Clark, I thought also a very strong addition, going to complement Jaren Jackson really well. Those are kind of some of the main ones that stand out. I like Boston's draft, just the three players that they added with Grant Williams, Romeo Langford, Carson Edwards. So I really enjoyed the draft. I'm happy that it's beyond this now, but we're already starting to get ready for 2020. I posted our first 2020 mock draft, headed to Summer League here pretty soon, and so we can't wait to get this thing started again.
And for those who are listening who don't know Jonathan's background, he founded Draft Express and is relentless, Joel. The guy's all over the world. He's all over the map. He and Mike Schmitz, anytime I showed up to a game, either with the Boston Celtics or the Phoenix Suns, those guys were there. So, Jonathan, one of the things that surprised me on Thursday a little bit was the fall of Nasir Little. I did a draft show for Yahoo Sports. I had Nasir Little. We had Nasir Little ranked 9th on our big board. As you know, there was a lot of volatility after the top 6 or 7, and beauty was kind of in the eye of the beholder in that mid to late lottery range. But what did you see with Nasir Little, Jonathan? Where did you have him ranked coming into the draft, and what do you think about him slipping to Portland at 25?
We had him, I believe, 11th on our final big board, and I was also surprised to see him slide all the way to 25. I was certain that someone like the Spurs, for example, would take a flyer on him. I mean, the Celtics passed up on him multiple times. I think that some of the background from North Carolina, I think, potentially hurt him. There was some talk there that his basketball IQ on one hand isn't particularly high, and then they weren't exactly sure how in love with the grind he actually is in terms of coming into the gym every day and getting extra shots up, doing all the little things. And so I think that hurt him. And it was just a very interesting contrast to see him slide all the way to 25, and then Darius Bazley, who was ranked well below him in his recruiting class coming out of high school, he decided to sit out all year, do an internship at New Balance. He goes 23 in the draft, and it kind of, makes you wonder sometimes, are we over-scouting these guys? And, is that aura of mystery with a guy like Bazley, does that propel him up over, a more known commodity like Little? I'd be interesting to see how those two, how their careers play out, because they essentially play the same position. They're the same age, and they went up against each other in high school and all the all-star games. And there was no question then who the better prospect was. And then, on draft night, we see Bazley go ahead of Little. Well, what did you think about it, Ryan?
I was surprised. As I mentioned, we had Little 9th on our board. I know he didn't have a great year at North Carolina. He only started one game. He played, I believe, less than 20 minutes a game coming off the bench for the Tar Heels. But, one of the benefits of a guy like Jonathan, Joel, is he doesn't start watching these guys when they show up on campus in Chapel Hill or Durham or Lexington, Kentucky. He's watching these guys when they're in high school. And Nasir Little was a consensus top 3 high school player. I liked his numbers, Jonathan, his advanced numbers, especially if you look at his per 36 numbers. I believe he averaged, close to 20 points and I think 9 rebounds a game, 19.4 points, 9.1 rebounds per 36 minutes at UNC. So I know the shooting was the knock. I did hear he shot it better on the pre-draft workout circuit, but he only made 27% of his threes for the Tar Heels. So I get why he slid a little. There was a lot of volatility and uncertainty. Like I said, after the top 6 or 7, I was comfortable with that group, and those guys ended up going in the top 6 or 7. After that, there was a little bit of breakdown as far as how teams saw it, but there was no scenario in which I saw Nasir Little sliding to Portland. And I think for me, Joel, that was the steal of the draft, the Trailblazers getting him, because if you're a Western Conference finalist and you have a high payroll like Portland does, and you have a loaded backcourt with 2 stars in Dame Lillard and C.J. McCollum, there's no other way, either financially or traditionally in the draft, to get a talent like Nasir Little in the late first round.
Yeah, Neil O'Shea had that fall into his lap. I don't disagree with you at all. And I did see some film on Little, and you're buying futures to begin with. And I like the philosophy because you brought up Jonathan, and Jonathan Gavoni of ESPN, formerly Draft Express, is with us. And do you expose too much? As here's Basley, the mystery. So the philosophy moving down the road, do you want to give them too much? Do you want to let them see? And then all of a sudden they're over-critiquing you and judging every little thing to break down your game. Jonathan, give me an idea, though. Last year, a couple of years ago, I tried to petition the league to stop the draft when DeJounte Murray went 29 to the Spurs. Didn't work. So now I look, and the Spurs, and I know they had 19 too, but at 28, Tony Parker a long time ago, I go through all these guys. R.C. Buford's pretty amazing when it comes to 28 and 29. Keldon Johnson, could you tell me what the future lies for Keldon Johnson? I worry about the Spurs when they've got the 29th pick.
I thought that was a great pick for them. It's, you could have really flipped Keldon Johnson and Luka Samanic, who they actually drafted at 19, and nobody would have been surprised because Keldon Johnson was there in the green room. Luka Samanic was sweating on draft night. His agent, was hitting me up left and right saying, "Where are we going? What are you hearing?" We had him in the second round. He went 19, and then Keldon, and we're sitting right behind his table in the green room. He ends up sliding, goes 29. Keldon Johnson is the guy that if you have a street fight and you want someone right next to you to help you out, that's the guy. I mean, he is as tough as they come. He defensively, getting on the glass. His skill level needs work, but he's not a bad shooter by any means. He's got, good size. He has length. You can maybe slide him up to the 4 spot at times. I think he's probably going to end up having a better rookie year than Luka Samanic did because, Luka Samanic, he's much more of a project than Keldon Johnson. So I thought that was a really good pick for the Spurs, and I think he's going to fit right into their culture. They're going to love having him, and they have some holes there in there on the wing, and I think he's going to get a chance to play fairly early on.
Yeah, and talking to members or texting with members of the Spurs front office on draft night, I know that pick was in play at one point, the 29th pick, and then when Keldon Johnson, the wing from Kentucky, was there, they said, no, we're not trading it, we're going to keep the pick. Joel, just so you know, in addition to Jonathan's scouting acumen, he's as tied into teams and especially with the draft process as anybody involved with the NBA. So the question I have for you, Jonathan, is about 2 guys that there was a lot of controversy about, a lot of talk about on draft night. First is in Phoenix with the Suns dropping back from 6 to 11. They picked up Dario Saric but drafted Cam Johnson. And the second is the Denver Nuggets trading in with the 44th pick for Bol Bol. What do you know about Cameron Johnson and the concerns about his hips? Did certain teams red flag those hips? And then about Bol Bol, the concerns with the foot. And is that, in your opinion, the reason he lasted until the 44th pick?
Yeah, so Cam Johnson, I was told, wasn't red flagged, it was orange flagged, which means that it's a mix between, it's a type of thing that's going to require maintenance. There is a level of concern there. He had hip surgery. I was told that it went well. If Cam Johnson didn't go 11th, most likely he was going somewhere in the 20s. We had him 30th on our final board. I actually liked him more as a prospect than that. I had him 19 on my top 100, which, that's more of what I think about them. So I like the fit actually in Phoenix. 6'9", 45% three-point shooter. I'm just not sure about the value that they got there at 11. You know, you have a miserable year. 19 wins, you second worst record in the NBA, and then you come out, you slide on lottery night to the 6th pick, and then you end up, picking up Dario Saric to move back to 11, which, you have to pay Saric in a year from now. And the process is what I really question there with the Suns. Okay, you trade TJ Warren, who, in my opinion, was on a very good contract, to open up some cap room, but then you take on Aaron Baines from the Celtics. So it's just, there's a level of confusion there, what exactly is the plan, and so, because now they don't have a ton of cap room to go and add a point guard, or a combo guard that complements Devin Booker. And so that's where the confusion comes in for me. You obviously know a lot more about, what's going on there than I do, though.
I'll plead the fifth. What about Bol Bol?
I was waiting for that. I
I
know nothing.
What do you
in terms
what do you
of
think about
Bol
Bol Bol?
That was a combination of intel, question marks about his work ethic, some of the background from high school that people kind of question, medical. He had a foot procedure, which is definitely not ideal for a 19-year-old 7'2" kid. And, there's some question marks. Is he going to need to possibly have more work on it done later on? And then losing all that weight, dropping from 230 pounds, 6 months ago to 208 pounds. I mean, it's very hard to play the center position in today's NBA at 208 pounds. But, okay, so I get him, going 20th or 22nd or whatever. But at some point in the draft, you look up and you say, Bol Bol has a chance to be an all-star. And we know we're starting to look at guys who are G League type players. At 40th, the Sacramento Kings take Justin James, who, if they don't take him at 40th, 95% he goes undrafted. You can get him on a two-way contract. And so that's where I start to wonder, at what point does the reward outweigh the risk? I thought that it was a great move by Tim Connelly, trading in and getting him. He did it with Michael Porter, and we'll see how that works out. But there's a lot of optimism around how good Michael Porter looks. And the Denver Nuggets are, they've made so many good moves. They've acquired so much talent. It just gives you a lot of flexibility. I mean, 44. He can do a lot of. He's probably going to get Bol on a cheap long-term contract, and he's going to rehab him. They have a great medical staff, and if it works out, I mean, that's an incredible asset to have moving forward with that group. He can probably play with Nikola Jokic, and with Porter, and so it's almost it's unfair the amount of talent that the Nuggets have on their roster right now.
I'm glad you brought up Porter, but I want to ask about a different Porter. Jonathan Givony from ESPN, Draft Express for all those years as well, joining us on SiriusXM NBA Radio. A couple of guys, okay? First, let's do Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We were talking about him a little bit earlier. And is he a project? Is he going to be, what is his position down the road? Is he a 2? Is he going to be a 3? And then after Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the price they paid to get Kevin Porter Jr., and what you see there with the $5 million, I heard 4 second-round picks as well. Obviously, Cleveland really wanted him. So let's go with those two guys.
So Alexander Walker is turning 21 in September. Was one of the better players in the ACC, which in my opinion was the best conference in college basketball this year. 38% three-point shooter, really polished. Good frame, good size, long arms. What position is he going to play? He's a guard. A lot of teams play 3 guards in the same backcourt now. And so is he going to be your primary ball handler? Probably not. But, in New Orleans, where he can play off of Lonzo Ball, off of Drew Holiday, maybe together, the 3 of them at times, that's really interesting. I mean, he's got that kind of versatility. He's got a very high basketball IQ. if you play 2 years under Buzz Williams at Virginia Tech, you've got to have some toughness also. So I think that he ticks a lot of boxes, and I think at that stage of the draft, you're looking for shooting, you're looking for versatility, and I think they definitely found it with that pick. So I like that move for David Griffin. And then Kevin Porter, I like when an owner steps up to the plate and says, here's $5 million, go get me the best player you can. It's tough for me to criticize that because these franchises are worth billions. And so if you have the money and, the clock is about to reset here in terms of how much money you could use, every year, why not go out and make an aggressive move for, Kevin Porter, who at some point was ranked in the top 10, of our board early on in the year. And, there were question marks about intel there, how serious he is about basketball. The background isn't ideal, but the kid can handle the ball. He can make shots off the dribble. He's got a big, strong frame. It's kind of like a Deion Waiters type, and you get a talent like that at 30th. I think it's worth taking a flyer on. I don't know exactly how he's going to fit with John Beilein. Those are opposite styles of players and coach, but I think at that stage of the draft, you take a swing for the fences and you see what happens.
It's a home run swing. There's no doubt about it. And it's potentially low risk, too, because as the 30th pick in the draft, that pick slot's only worth about $2 million on a cap that's projected to be 109. So if it works out, great. You have him for up to 4 years of team control at a low dollar, and then he's restricted. Or if it doesn't work out, you can cut your losses after 2 or 3 years, and you haven't spent a lot of money. So I understood the risk, but I do have questions about the fit, especially given that they drafted Darius Garland in the lottery with the 5th pick, which I thought was a terrific pick. I had him 4th on my board. I like he and Colin Sexton, so I guess they thought Porter would be the ideal third guard coming off the bench for Cleveland. The question I had, Jonathan, kind of taking us inside how teams and front offices work, was about Matisse Thybulle, the wing from the University of Washington. I had heard rumors of a promise from Philadelphia. He was drafted at 20 by the Boston Celtics and then traded to Philly for the 24th and 33rd pick. So I want to know, first and foremost, what your thoughts are about Thybulle as a player, and if indeed you thought there was a promise given to Thybulle by the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, so I wasn't quite as high on Thybulle. I had him 32nd on my big board. The track record of college seniors who averaged under 10 points a game is very, very poor. You're looking at Ronaldo Balkman, Mamadou Ndiaye, Hilton Armstrong, Miles Plumlee, that. And so I get the appeal with the defense, the steals and the blocks and the length. It's intriguing, but, you watch the playoffs this year, there's nowhere to hide. If you're not a threat to score, if you're not a threat to make shots, it's very hard to play you, And so with that said, for Philadelphia to be so enamored with him, to shut him down early in the process and kind of telegraph that to the league, and then kind of get exposed by the Celtics when they took him 20th and they wanted him so bad that they gave up, a pretty good asset with a very high second round pick. If that works out, great. But if not, they don't have that many mechanisms at this stage to add talent to their roster. And that 32nd pick could have been pretty valuable. And so I just question if Thybulle was that level of prospect that to fall in love with him that early on. And, why not just say, okay, Boston, keep Matisse Thybulle. I'm going to draft Nasir Little, who,
right.
I think is a much higher level talent than Thybulle. So that was a move that Sam Hinkie pulled on the Orlando Magic 5 years ago when he kind of snuffed out that they were in love with Elfrid Payton, and the same exact thing happened, with the Sixers. And, I think there's a level of concern there around Sixers fans are we maximizing our assets right now the way that Sam Hinkie did? And I think the answer is no.
Or how, after the Markelle Fultz and Jason Tatum fiasco, how's Boston getting intelligence out of our office? Where are the leaks? because there's something going on there that the Celtics knew there was a premium for that player for the 76ers, and they were going to leverage that. So that's really interesting on the other side of it if you're looking for conspiracy theories. Jonathan, last thing, we appreciate all your time and a lot of positives, and we've been going in that direction. But what about the teams? If there's a team or a couple of teams kind of had you scratching your head like, what are they doing on draft night?
Yeah, when I look at the draft more, there's a level of humility that you acquire after this is 16 years that I'm doing this, where you think, well, this guy is definitely better than that guy. And I look more at the process, because I think that's more important than the actual picks, because we can all argue about, who's better, is Nasir Little a better prospect than Thybulle? And so, that's where I kind of question the Suns a little bit and the Sixers. And, I was a little bit surprised. Let's see, I'm kind of going through my draft board. The Warriors, with Jordan Poole, and then falling in love the way they did with, Alen Samoljic, where they traded up twice in order to get this guy, unloading a bunch of future second-round picks, which, possibly could have ended up being pretty valuable down the road. How much is Alen Samoljic going to help you, where you have to undergo this massive 5-year conspiracy to shut him down, hide him, in your G League team, keep him over in Serbia where, nobody can find him. A lot of teams, I think, were scratching their head at that. So I'm not going to criticize him now, but I am curious to see how that plays out. And, was it worth undergoing that process there?
Yeah, Pels aren't complaining, are they, with a couple of second-round picks out of that?
Definitely not.
No. Hey, Jonathan, appreciate your insight and all your time today. Continued success. Thank you again for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great day.